परत लावली ती तुम्ही.
Hello, good morning, Shinde sir.
Good morning.
Hello, please introduce to Dr. Sarode sir.
Oops. Honorable dignitaries, delegates, and participants. I extend a warm welcome to all of you in this August morning. It is my privilege to introduce today's guest speaker, Dr. A.M. Sarode. He is an associate professor and a head of department, English department, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He is also PhD guide. He has, under his guidance, 4 students have completed PhD and 2 students have completed their. He has published 50 research papers in various national and international journals. He has also attended more than 50 national and international conferences. He has written 2 books which are published in reputed published by reputed publications, and his area of interest is linguistics and new literatures and critical theory. So now I would like to request Dr. Sarvade sir to begin his session.
Thank you very much, Yuvraj. The principal of the college, the organizing committee who have organized this international e-conference on reciprocal interface of literature and social sciences, and dear participants. Good morning, everybody. When the topic given to me is literary studies and interdisciplinarity. If you look at the topic, literary studies and interdisciplinarity, 3 terms, they come out prominently. The first one is literature, the second is literary studies, and the third is interdisciplinarity. So let us look at each of these terms first, and then we'll talk about the present scenario, the way the research in literature nowadays is carried out. Well, interdisciplinarity, as we know, is a buzzword during a couple of last decades. We have been talking about the interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinary relevance of any topic or the topics, academic topics that we study. Interdisciplinarity means crossing the traditional boundaries of academic disciplines. Now, we have different disciplines, both in social sciences and sciences. These disciplines are well established. And when we cross the traditional boundaries between these disciplines, it becomes interdisciplinary. That is to say, a given subject means any topic, a given subject is understood with perspectives of various other disciplines. Say, for example, a literary text, it is a subject, it is a topic of study. And when a literary text is understood with the help of perspectives from other disciplines, the literary study becomes interdisciplinary. It is a combination of methods and insights of 2 or more academic disciplines into the pursuit of a common task, such as a research project. Most of the time, the interdisciplinarity or the multidisciplinary nature of a subject becomes clear when we talk about a research or a research project. A research may be for the sake of obtaining a degree like MPhil or PhD, or it may be a research project carried out on oneself. That is, methods and insights of other disciplines to better understand a given topic, a given text. So that is what interdisciplinarity is. As we know, the beginning of the 20th century marked the emergence of many disciplines. Many disciplines, they came in to existence during the beginning of the 21st century. And on the contrary, the end of the 20th century, we have the realization of the importance of the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary studies. We became aware of the importance of interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary studies by the end of the 20th century. Look at these two. Beginning marked the emergence of many disciplines, and the end of the 20th century, it came with the realization that the different disciplines, they need to be brought together to understand a given subject, a given text in a better manner. So that is a kind of contradiction during the 20th century. So why means why we have the emergence of different disciplines during the beginning of 20th century? Because knowledge developed. A lot of knowledge, the developments, particularly during the 19th century, I'll be talking about those developments after a while. The developments during the 19th century, they helped the emergence of many disciplines. But a glance at the historical development of different disciplines reveals the true nature of human knowledge. Hence, though we have different disciplines during 20th century, if we look at the history of knowledge, human knowledge, the historical development of human knowledge, the way human knowledge was studied, was seen, was researched, we have a true nature of the way the way knowledge was viewed, the knowledge was studied, and it was preserved and carried out, or let us say transmitted to the next generations. For example, we know that the knowledge, we say that this knowledge started with, because due to Renaissance, we most of the time relate our knowledge to the Greek and Roman times. In Indian context, it is the Sanskrit or the classical ages. So the Greek and Roman times, we know that there was a very there were very few disciplines. I remember means there were different academies in Greek and Rome, and in those academies, only the 7 liberal arts were taught. That is, the students were taught 7 arts, and that is sufficient. All the knowledge that we have today was clubbed together in those 7 liberal arts. Now, the same can be seen in Indian context of Gurukul education system. So, in Gurukul education system too, different kinds of knowledge, they are given in the same school with very few topics, very few subjects to the students, to the pupils. And that's why when we have the emergence of different disciplines during 20th century, we claim that Aristotle is the father of many modern disciplines, for example, such as philosophy, psychology, sociology, history, etc. We say that Aristotle is the father of these branches. Why? Though during Aristotle's times, these disciplines, they were not in existence. Whatever he has carried out, whatever he has written is related to these modern disciplines too. And that's why Aristotle is said to be the father of many modern disciplines. His books, particularly the Nicomachean Ethics, that is said to be the source of, or let us say the origin of many social sciences. That is important. And as far as literature is concerned, his book Poetics is highly acclaimed one. So this poetics, the book Poetics reveals his understanding about literature and the nature of the literary studies. So the same perspective of homogeneous knowledge, homogeneous discipline, is to be seen in a metaphorical image proposed by R.W. Emerson, the 19th century American essayist, writer. His concept of a hand and the division of hand into different fingers, 5 fingers, that reflects the homogeneous approach towards knowledge, human knowledge. So the metaphor is to be seen in the essay that he has written. The title of the essay is The American Scholar. And in that essay, Emerson has said that the knowledge, human knowledge is like this, or the scholar, American scholar need to be a person expert in all fields. And for that, he uses the metaphor of a hand, that a hand is divided further into 5 fingers, and it enables the human beings to work in a better way, to carry out their works in a better manner. So this division of a hand in fingers, it is metaphorical, the division of disciplines. Only one discipline, a homogeneous kind of knowledge, and then the division of different disciplines. And that's why the metaphor of a hand and its division in finger is important here. The beginning of 20th century marked unprecedented development in many disciplines related to both science and social sciences. And as I said, the developments that took place during 19th century, they helped or they fostered the development or emergence of many disciplines. And the developments of 19th century, they are, the first one is Charles Darwin's publication of the emergence of species, his book, the emergence of species, particularly his essay, Darwin's essay, Emergence of Species. It underlined the human nature, or let us say the animal quality of human beings. And that's why we came into we came to know the two phrases, particularly the survival of the fittest and the struggle for existence. As other animals struggle for their existence, human beings are also the animals, and they have to struggle for their existence. And the second is the survival of the fittest. Those who are the fit, they only can survive. So that particular idea of Charles Darwin proposed during the second half of the 19th century, it changed the view of the people, and that also helped in the development of different disciplines during 20th century. The second development that you find in 19th century is Friedrich Nietzsche's book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And in this book, Nietzsche declared that God is dead. Nietzsche declared that God is dead, that there is no God. Earlier, the belief was that the universe is ruled over by God and God is immanent everywhere. He controls the world. But his declaration that God is dead, it shattered the beliefs of the people, and that led to more materialistic and objective attitude, scientific attitude of people. So that is one of the developments of 19th century that helped in the emergence of many disciplines during the beginning of 20th century. The third development could be seen is Freud's psychoanalysis. Freud's psychoanalysis, earlier, even human beings, they were claiming that I is important, because the universe is, as we know, in existentialism, we talk about whether I precedes or follows. I is important or the world is important. Whether the world, I am and the world exists, or the world exists and that's therefore I am. That struggle is there, but this I is all the time important. Freud, in his works, have shown that this I is not homogeneous. He has shown that I is divisible into the id, ego, and superego. What exactly we mean, what exactly we behave, how exactly we behave, it is not the homogeneous behavior. It is dependent upon the three factors, this id, ego, and superego. And this development, that even the I, people generally claim to claim of themselves, but this assertion of Freud shattered the views of the people, and this I is now divided into id, ego, and superego, because we know this mind is divided into the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. Sometimes we do some certain things, but we are not aware of them. And that is, Freud has shown what exactly human beings do and why they do. So this divisibility of I that is proposed by Freud also led to a different development during the 20th century. And one more thing, one more development, one more book that was important for the development of modern sciences or modern disciplines during 20th century is the publication of the book, The Golden Bough. This is anthropological based book, and that too helped in the change of attitude of people, and man become more scientific. And this becoming more scientific, becoming more materialistic, led to the emergence of different disciplines. So the emergence of different disciplines during the beginning of 20th century, that is the first thing. And by the end of the 20th century, the second realization that the different knowledge, different disciplines, they need to be brought together in order to understand a given subject in a better manner. So that is a second realization. So earlier we divided the disciplines, hand is divided into finger, and then those fingers are brought together to bring in or to understand a given subject in a better manner. So that is what the meaning of the term interdisciplinarity and the origin of different disciplines is. Now let us turn to the second thing, that is literature. What is literature? We talk of literature. Say literature is said to be the imitation of life, or it is said to be the reflection of society, etc. There are many definitions of literature. So, but Aristotle defines, he says that literature is imitation of life, that literature imitates the life, human life in general, or it reflects the society in general. So that is what we mean by that. But basically, literature is a part of a culture, and it is also culture itself. Literature, I said, is a part of a culture. It is, most of the time it is said that literature is a part of a culture, because the culture makes the writer write that literature. But on the other hand, literature itself is a culture too. How is it? See, for example, the culture reflects the values, beliefs, traditions, and the overall intellectual development of the concerned society. That is known to us. That what is culture? That culture reflects the values, beliefs, traditions, and the overall intellectual development. The values, beliefs, and traditions, that is part and parcel of culture. But in addition to that, the overall intellectual development of any society is also reflected in culture. And this reflection of these things in culture, they are also to be seen in a literary text. And that's why literary text is, literature is a part of a culture, because it is the embodiment of the intellectual development of that community at the given time. But at the same time, since literature reflects all the aspects of the given society, it carries, it is also culture itself. And that is why I said literature is a part of culture and also the culture itself. Now, these aspects of culture, the reflection, as I said, of values, beliefs, traditions, and overall intellectual development of the society, all these aspects of culture are studied in different disciplines. We know that traditions, belief, values, they are studied in sociology, they are studied in philosophy, they are studied in psychology, and the overall intellectual development. These different aspects of culture, they are studied in different disciplines. That is to say, since literature is the mirror of life, all aspects of life, like the feelings, emotions, knowledge, experience of human beings, they are reflected in it. And therefore, there is a scope for studying literature from many perspectives of various disciplines. Since various aspects of culture, they are present in literature, a literary text can be studied using different perspectives from various other disciplines. So that is quite possible. Literature also encompasses all disciplines. Therefore, it is claimed, since literature reflects all the knowledge, human knowledge, in a text, it is said that literature encompasses all disciplines. For example, from science to social science and other disciplines. You might be knowing that during 20th century, a new genre came into being, and that is of science fiction. And the science fiction, or the fiction written by these writers, for example, the book like Time Machine or The Brave New World, or many other science fiction texts that are written, that are produced during the second half of the 20th century, they help science too. For example, Bruce Sterling's one book, the American science fiction writer, it talked about internet long back of its existence. Now, this is the scientific, let us say, the ideas of a writer, and they proved true. These scientific ideas of a writer, and they proved true when after some time. So that is what we say, and that's why literature, it reflects various dimensions of culture, and all these dimensions, they are of different, they are studied, let us say, they are studied in different disciplines of human knowledge. That is the nature of literature is. Now, what is literary study? And it is very simple, that the way a literary text is studied is literary study. So how is it? Is it interdisciplinary? One thing is clear, that literature reflects different dimensions of culture, and that's why literature is multidisciplinary in nature. If that is so, now can it be studied from other disciplines? How was a literary study carried out right from its inception? For example, it is always, as I said, literary study is always already interdisciplinary. Why? Because it reflects many aspects of culture. I made that point earlier, and that's why the way you study literature, in whichever way you study literature, it is going to be interdisciplinary. For example, the earlier approaches to the study of literature were established ones, means they were very popular during the 17th and 18th centuries. And the earlier approaches, they were the historical and sociological approach, the biographical approach, the psychological approach. In these approaches, it was thought that a literary text can best be studied, can best be understood if we look at the historical or the sociological facts of its production. So the history of the time when the book came into being, or the sociological aspects of the time when the writer was writing the text, they, or the knowledge of these things, help better understand a literary text. And that's why a literary text is always related to the sociology or history of the times of the writer. The next aspect is the biography of the writer. It's argued that the biography of the writer always has something or some bearing upon the literary text. That the literary text carries certain incidents, certain elements from the biography, from the life of the writer, and that's why the life of the writer is related to a literary text in its understanding. So that is what biographical approach is. And the next one is, as I said, psychological. Now, the psychology during 17th and 18th century was not that developed. It developed later on. As I said, from Freud, we talk about psychoanalysis, but before Freud, the the understanding of psychology was very limited, and that's why this. However, whatever knowledge of psychology that those people had during those times, they helped, or they used that knowledge to study literature or literary text. So you might be aware of Dr. Johnson, and Dr. Johnson prepared the lives of writers, means different writers he studied, and he made a note of those writers, and he talked about the biography, the psychology of the writers, and how they help, or how they are reflected in a literary text. That is what we see. But as we have different developments or the emergence of different branches of knowledge during the beginning of 20th century, so also the nature of literary study changed during the beginning of 20th century. So the earlier approaches, with the help of which a literary text was studied, are the psychoanalytical. I talked about Freud. We need to talk about is C.J. Jung, Carl Gustav Jung. So both these writers, whereas Freud talked about the ego and superego, or the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious aspect of mind. Jung, on the other hand, he talked about collective unconsciousness, and he said that a writer reflects the collective unconsciousness of the society in his text, or let us say the seminal text, Jung argues, uh, reflect the collective unconsciousness of that writer. So both, whereas Freud was talking about the individual mind, the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind. On the other hand, Jung was talking about the collective unconsciousness as human beings of a particular group, a member of a particular group, of a particular community, of a particular place. We have a kind of collective unconsciousness, and that collective unconsciousness is more important than individual consciousness or unconsciousness. And he says, Jung argues that this collective unconsciousness is reflected in a literary text, and that's why the psychoanalytical approach to literature or literary text during the beginning of 20th century marked a decisive kind of change. Even in terms of Freud, means I have read text by Oedipus Rex by by Sophocles. This Oedipus Rex, Freud analyzed that play, Oedipus Rex by Sophocles, and he come up with the terms like Oedipus complex and Electra complex. So this is the individual psychology, that the boy is more attracted towards his mother, while the girl is attracted towards her father. Now this is called Oedipus complex and Electra complex. And while analyzing the text, this Oedipus Rex by Sophocles, Freud came up with the view that the individual psychology, individual's psychic condition is important. So that is what you find in psychoanalytical approach to literature. So that is, it becomes interdisciplinary. A literary text, for example, the character of Oedipus Rex, is studied in terms of psychoanalysis, whereby the psychology of the individual, how it makes him behave in a particular manner. So that is what psychoanalytical study of literature is. The next one is structuralist approach or structuralist study of literature. So the structuralist study of literature, it brings together literature, anthropology, and linguistics. So Saussure's idea of a sign as divisible into a signifier and a signified, and Claude Lévi-Strauss, his idea of anthropology. So this Claude Lévi-Strauss is a very important anthropologist, structuralist anthropologist. So he studied the kinship terms in anthropology in terms of structuralist approach. So the structuralism or the structuralist approach of literature brings together literary study, linguistics, and anthropology. So that is to be seen. Another approach that we find to the study of literature during the beginning of 20th century, or let us say during the first half of the 20th century, is archetypal criticism proposed by Notre-Frey. Notre-Frey is a very well-known critic of literature, and he said that literary study is of two types. One is centripetal and the second is centrifugal. Centripetal, bringing different disciplines to the study of literature, where a literary text is studied in terms of the approaches, perspectives from other disciplines. That is centripetal. And centrifugal, the study of literature and starting with a literary text and going to different other disciplines. So these two approaches that he proposed to the study of literature, but his basic stand is anthropology, and he has proposed that the cycle of nature, that is the seasons, different seasons that we talk of, like summer, winter, and then this and the cycle of day, that is dawn, and then morning, and then afternoon, and evening, and night. So these natural cycles, these are natural cycles, or the cycle of human life, that is birth, youth, young birth, childhood, then youth, and then old age, and then the death. So that is how the natural cycles of human life too, they are related, he proposes. And a literary text, different genres of literary text, he argues, are related to the different phases of the human life or the cycles of nature. But basically, as I said, Northrop Frye's approach or base of his idea is anthropology, and he has come up with this anthropological perspective in his archetypal criticism. Another important approach to literature that I could remember is that of Sartre. Sartre is he's said to be the existentialist philosopher, but his idea, his basic question is, why does a writer write a text? Why is a text in existence? What makes the text exist? So that is the question that he asked, and he has considered the literary text from epistemological perspective, from philosophical perspective, and that is why his approach to the study of literature is also different. One more approach, and that is very prominent one that was there during the first half of the 20th century, is Marxist criticism. This Marxist criticism, we know, it brings together the ideas from economics and human ethics, and they are applied to the literary text. For example, many of the plays of John Galsworthy, they were written during the first half of the 20th century. For example, like Strife, that talks about the clash between the laborers and the capitalists. So the fight between the laborers and the capitalists, or the, let us say, the perennial love-hate relationship between the two, that is very prominent, and that is studied from economical and human ethics point of view in Marxist criticism. So these were the earlier approaches to the study of literature up to the middle of the 20th century. But this is a rough kind of time. It is not, I'm not saying that 1950 stopped these approaches, or these approaches were popular only up to that time. I do not want to suggest that. But after that, we have different post-structuralist approaches to the study of literature. And these post-structuralist approaches too, they are basically interdisciplinary. Now, what these post-structuralist approaches are, we need to look at them first, and then we'll talk about the present status of research in India. So one of them is deconstruction. The foremost of the post-structuralist approach that we talk of is the theory of deconstruction, or deconstructionist idea of Jacques Derrida. So he brought together literature, linguistics, and anthropology. Now this Derrida's essay, Structure, Sign, and Play in the Discourse of Human Sciences. So this discourse of human sciences is discourse of human sciences, that is all the disciplines. The discourse of human sciences, all the disciplines, and he talks of the structure, sign, and play in the discourses. What is the structure, what is the sign, and what is the play? These three things in the overall human knowledge. He doesn't talk only about literature, but about the total human knowledge in general. And that's why his ideas, the deconstructionist ideas, can be applied to a literary text, to anthropology, to language. So this is to be seen, and it is all encompassing kind of thing, means it includes different disciplines. But this essay, Structure, Sign, and Play in the Discourses of Human Sciences, so it paved a way to challenge the established ideas of human knowledge that the first half of the 20th century tried to propose. The next approach is to be seen, and that is important, is reader response criticism. Reader response criticism, hereby it is associated with Stanley Fish and some of his colleagues. And in this particular approach, as the name suggests, reader response criticism, In this theory, uh, unlike the earlier theories where the creator of a text, the writer, he was given importance. A text is important because the writer has produced it, that the writer has to be given credit of the text. But in this theory, it is argued that though the writer has created the text, the meaning of the text is not created by the writer. Rather, it is the reader who creates the meaning. That is, the reader is free to read the text and come up with different meanings. And this is because of reader. As I said, this theory gives more importance to reader. Now, the text like, say, we have Death of the Author, essays, Death of the Author, or What is an Author by Foucault. Foucault has written this What is an Author, and then Death of the Author. So these two phrases, Death of the Author and What is an Author, declare that the author's role is challenged, and the role of the reader is also brought in the process of the process of understanding the meaning of the text. So that is what reader response criticism is. It is also interdisciplinary in nature. The next approach is a very popular one, and that is feminist theories. The feminist theories, we know that feminism is not related only to literature. It is basically a social movement. So feminist and feminism. So feminist, feminism, and then feminist literary criticism we have. So this feminism or feminist ideas, they are born in society, and then they are brought to the study of a literary text. For example, Simone de Beauvoir's the book The Second Sex, it talks about the subordinate position given to women in traditional discourse, and she challenged it. It led to the development of feminist movements across the globe, and then the establishment of feminist theories, and those theories later on applied to a literary text. So this becomes interdisciplinary. So that is how the feminist criticism, or the nature of feminist criticism is. One more thing is there, and that is post-colonial feminism or third world feminism. I need to talk about it in Indian context, because the place of women in the Western European countries is different from those of the Asian countries or the third world countries. And that's why some scholars, some thinkers, feminist thinkers from the third world countries, they argued that the feminist ideas of the first world or the second world theorists, they may not be that much appropriate when we study a literary text produced in by the third world writers. And the basic reason is that the idea of a female in these countries is different, or their plight is different from those of the European women. And that's why the scholars like Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, they come up with their own idea of the third world feminism. And this feminism too is applied to the text written in the third world countries. So that is the feminist criticism. This feminist criticism, as I said, it brings the sociology, it brings politics, it brings even psychology, because the women are depressed, and the psychology of women, the sociology, psychology, politics of othering, all these branches are brought together to study the way a literary text depicts the women characters. So that is what feminist criticism is. The next approach to next interdisciplinary approach to literary text, and that is very pertinent, very important, is post-colonial or neo-colonial approach. Now, this post-colonialism and neo-colonialism, these are different terms, I agree, but I brought them together because their concerns is the same. Their concerns are the same. The important theorist that we have to talk about when we refer to post-colonialism or post-colonial criticism or the post-colonial approach to a literary text is that of Edward Said and his theory of Orientalism. So he made a distinction between Orient and the Occident. So how exactly the Orient was viewed by the Occident. So that is important. So this Orientalism by Edward Said, the theory of hybridity, nation and narration by Homi Bhabha, that even Franz Fanon's book Black Skin, White Mask. So it talks about the plight of the colonized, the subordinated, the marginalized group who have to live in the suppressed condition. So this black skin and white mask, it is again interdisciplinary because basically Franz Fanon is a psychoanalyst and he has studied the psychology of the colonized, the francophone African countries, and how the subjects, the colonized people in those countries, they think, they behave, because their psychology is totally controlled by the surrounding colonized let us say situation. And that's why his ideas of the colonized subject, Franz Fanon's idea of colonized subject, this is also very important in post-colonialism. So post-colonialism, again here we have the political science, bringing together of political science, bringing together of culture, because colonialism, it resulted in different things. Means it relates to economics, it relates to political science, it relates to even sociology. So all these aspects, they are, and it also relates to psychology. So all these aspects, they are brought together when we study a literary text produced in a post-colonial country, that is a country which was once governed by the colonizer. So when we study these countries, the literature from these countries, we have to think of the post-colonial theory, which brings together these different disciplines. One more theory that I need to refer to here is Ngugi wa Thiong'o and his idea of neo-colonialism. Ngugi wa Thiong'o has written a book. It is a collection of essays, and that is Decolonizing the Mind. Decolonizing the Mind. And in this book, basically Ngugi wa Thiong'o is from Kenya, and he says that the colonizers, they have colonized our mind, and unless and until we decolonize our mind, we are not free. Well, we may be politically free, our country may be politically free, but the idea of colonization that is there in our mind, that cannot be removed unless and until we decolonize our mind itself. And that's why this decolonizing the mind, this in this book, he talks about neo-colonialism also, how exactly colonialism, it was the direct rule of the colonizer, and then it related to the economic exploitation. But in neo-colonial theory, he says that there is no need of a direct political control on any of these countries, but still the economic gain will go to the colonized country. So that is the present time neo-colonial theory is. But in these theories also, we bring together psychology, sociology, economics, all these aspects are the perspectives from these branches, these different disciplines, to study a literary text. Very important development during the second half of the 20th century is to be seen in terms of culture studies and subaltern studies. So culture studies is a group that started in England, that is true. But culture studies, it provided, because it emerged out of the awareness from different disciplines again, from Marxism, for example, the concept of ideology, that is very pertinent in Marxism. So ideology, and how exactly the ideology is created by the center, the group in the center, and how that ideology is implicitly propagated, and the others have to accept it without challenge. So that is what is studied is done in culture studies. Different aspects of human life, they are brought together there. It focuses basically, as I said, on the center and decentering. It seeks to decenter the center. So that is what culture studies does. It studies the culture, and it looks for such centers, and it tries to decenter those centers. So that is what this culture studies is. The next is subaltern studies. Subaltern studies, or let us say the marginalized study of the marginalizations. So this term subaltern, as we know, is coined by Gramsci, or it is associated with Gramsci, the Italian thinker or a prison writer. But this subaltern studies, it studies the plight of the downtrodden, it studies subaltern studies the life of the downtrodden, and it also provides the measures for the improvement in the predicament of the marginalized people. So subaltern studies the plight of the marginalized. It looks for its reasons of their marginalization, and also provides certain measures to remove the inequality, the marginality, or the subalternity of these people. So that is what we find in this subaltern studies. Next school that is we have related to subaltern studies is that of LGBT and Q studies, lesbian, gay, transgender, and queer studies. So different minority groups that we have in society. So these are the minority groups, and they do not have their say, because whenever we talk of a society, we talk of the norm. So what is norm? And these people, they are said that they are not the norm, and that's why they are marginalized. But the studies, the LGBT and Q studies, it provides voice to the marginalized people. These marginalized people, these are marginalized by the society, by the system of the society, by the tradition of the society, and provides them or gives them a human identity. So that's why this LGBTQ studies is interdisciplinary in itself, because it relates to, and you might be knowing, means even in Indian context, the political rights are now given to all these groups, and that is important. So this sociology, political science, and even economics too, they can be seen as important when we talk about this LGBTQ studies. Now, there is earlier we talked about the psychoanalysis and Marxism, but the post-structuralist time, the post-structuralist phase provided us new thinkers in the same theory. For example, in case of psychoanalysis, we have the ideas or the theories of Lacan. Now, this Lacan, he is talking about psychology. He's talking about the very cognition of an individual. He talks of the very cognition of an individual, that how exactly the cognition comes. So it is not only the psychology of the individual, but the sociology, the way the person has his bearings. Anthropology, sociology, and psychology, they are brought together in the same approach by Lacan. And that can be, so he talks of society in terms of mother figure and father figure and father function. So these things he uses to show how exactly the very cognition of an individual is built up, and this building of a cognition, how it relates to the characters in a text. So that is a very important one. And as far as Marxist theories are concerned during the post-structuralist times, because see, the Marxist theorists of the post-structuralist times, they are more informed. They are more informed. They have studied different disciplines, and they have their own ideas too. They have seen, because these modernist and post-modernist ideas that were developed, they can be seen in the writings of these writers. And two very important Marxist critics of the contemporary time are Frederick Jameson and Terry Galton. So the Marxism that they have proposed is of a very different type. The earlier Marxism or the Marxist theories that were proposed by the earlier critics, and the Marxist ideas that you find in the writings of these two writers, Frederick Jameson and Terry Galton, they are totally different ones. But they are suitable to the postmodern times. How exactly the postmodern time had changed the human existence, and how this capitalism and the how this capitalism has also changed its face. Earlier capitalism, Frederick Jameson, for example, cites a very good example. So in terms of architecture, he says that during the modern times, the buildings of the capitalists, they were very high, and they were distinct from the common household of the common people. So that is the distinction between the capitalist and the other, the poor people. They were it was very evident. But during the postmodern time, the division between the capitalist and the common people has blurred, for example, say, and he cites the example of the malls. The malls are there, and they have the same kind of structure. They have the same kind of let us say the architectural structure, and they are there within you. You cannot make a distinction between your home and their homes. So this capitalism has entered. It has changed its shape. That is what Frederick Jameson says. Now these critics, as I said, they have come up with their different ideas. Terry Eagleton is known for his postmodernism as late capitalism. So the phrase that he has coined is very important as far as Terry Eagleton's ideas of Marxist ideas are concerned. So that is that. Now all these theories, they underline one thing, that literary studies were never purely literary. They were interdisciplinary, and they are interdisciplinary today too. Now, in spite of all these things, if I look at the research carried out for obtaining MPhil or PhD degrees, or research projects that we have that we opt for, up to, let us say, 1990s, a basic trend in the study of literature was, I read many of such type of theses, and they are the study of writer, a particular writer. Say, for example, we have the modern T.S. Eliot, modern British writer. T.S. Eliot, or the poems of T.S. Eliot, an assessment, or a thematic study, or a study. Such kind of research that was carried out up to 1990s, 1995. But after that, a change is visible. A change is visible whereby people have now started relating a literary text in their research to different other disciplines. This is because, as I said in the very beginning itself, interdisciplinarity has become a buzzword during the couple of last decades. And the UGC, the Indian Project Sanctioning Agency, like UGC, or sorry, the ICSSR, the agencies that sanction projects to the literary studies, they are asking for the interdisciplinary relevance of a given topic. Now, this interdisciplinarity therefore has become, means you cannot separate your knowledge. People have now realized that the understanding of a given subject only from a single perspective, single discipline, will be incomplete. In order to understand any subject, any topic, you have to look at that topic from many perspectives, coming from different disciplines. And if you do so, the results will be rewarding. The results will be rewarding not only for your research, but they will be rewarding, and they will be useful for the society at large. That is what is the realization of today's is. I think during my lecture, I would try to show how exactly literary studies are interdisciplinary right from the beginning, and we need to be interdisciplinary. We need to be multidisciplinary in our approach when we study a literary text. That is what I think. This is what my proposition is. I thank the organizers for inviting me as a speaker for this session. I also thank the audience for listening patiently to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your enriching lecture. Your lecture has touched all aspects of knowledge, humanities. It is quite journey from ancient Greece to postmodern times. And in brief, you have tried to analyze the evolution of knowledge system in humanities. So there is one question from participant. Just I want to share with you how this approach is going to help us to create new knowledge system in humanities.
Yes, well, a very good question. We have to create new knowledge. See, we have been creating knowledge. That is, I said, means culture. I referred to culture in the very beginning, and culture shows, it reflects the status of human knowledge at any given time. Now, if we adopt these approaches, say for example, we talk about Corona now, this Corona crisis we are facing, and we know that it is a disease. Basically, the basic concern of Corona is medicine. So the doctors are there and they are taking care of us. But this Corona has different other dimensions. For example, it has economic dimension. It has sociological dimension. It has psychological dimension. Means you might have seen that people are depressed due to this Corona. The political dimensions. See, economic dimensions, we know that Corona has the country in or many of the countries of the world, they are now facing their economy has came down. Same in the case of sociology, because we have to keep distance, physical distance. So earlier there was objection to the term social distancing and then physical distancing. We were starting using the term physical distancing because it has connotations. Social aspect of Corona, the political aspect of Corona, the economic aspect of Corona, all these aspects, when we brought them together in understanding Corona or the phase of Corona crisis, then we are creating a new knowledge. So such kind of studies are going to be more useful nowadays.
Thank you, sir. Your lecture and your answer reminded me of Sir Philip Sidney and his Renaissance approach. Thank you once for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to introduce our new next speaker, Dr. Rajesh Nair, an assistant professor at School of Letters, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam. He's a research scholar. He's a research scholar. He has published many research papers, articles in various national and international journals. His area of interest is life studies, critical theories, language, post-colonial studies, and he has published 4 books. He attended various national and international conferences, seminars, presented papers, presided some conferences. He has delivered many guest lectures in various schools, colleges, and at university centers. He has completed one minor project even also. So, without taking further time, I would like to request Dr. Rajesh Nair, sir, to begin his session. Thank you, sir.
A very warm good morning to all of you. I hope I am audible. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
A warm good morning, all of you, dear teachers, research scholars, students from different universities across India. I should thank, at the beginning, I should thank the organizers for giving me a chance to present a paper on literary research. The time is very limited, so let me begin my presentation. The title, Recent Trends in Literary Research. So at the beginning, let me introduce the objectives of this presentation. So through this presentation, I would like to explicate the different steps of doing literary research. So it's very important for us to understand the rules, the so-called rules and guidelines of doing research. Secondly, to briefly introduce some of the recent trends in literary research. So given the stipulated time, I would like to briefly introduce only a few recent trends in literary research. So with these 2 objectives in my mind, Let me give you the structure of my presentation. Look at the structure. If you look at the structure of the presentation, it was for two broad sections. Section 1, what is literary research, interdisciplinarity in literary research, stages of doing research, and who is afraid of theories. And second section deals with some of the important trends like cultural studies, literature and memory, literature and space, literature and human rights, and literature and the waste. Right. Let me begin with the first component. What is literary research? Basically, literary research means research in the field of literature. That's a plain meaning, right? But when we talk about research in general, research is not a careless process, but rather a systematic exploration of knowledge. So there is a plan. There's a definite program before you. So you have to be very systematic while doing research. You have to collect data. Data collection is very important. Not only collection of data, but you have to analyze the data. So collection, the second component, analysis is also very important. So, one of the main reasons behind poor research output is the lack of analysis and interpretation. So if you duplicate the existing data, that is not research. Research is actually an elaboration. It is a creation of, it's an addition, In fact, it is an addition to the existing knowledge. It is a revision of the existing knowledge, but it is not the reproduction of existing knowledge. It is not the imitation of the existing knowledge. That we have to be very, very clear. So there has to be interpretation and analysis. And if you ask me, what are the two important qualities of a good researcher? I'm really proud to say that even after getting my PhD, I'm still doing research. So my first preference is still research. So what is the most important quality of a good researcher? I would say passion. So I'm really interested. I'm really passionate about my research. I was listening to the previous speaker who highlighted the importance of interdisciplinarity. So let me give you an example. At present, I am working in Mahatma Gandhi University, Kerala. There are obviously different departments in my university. So talking about interdisciplinarity, I am basically an English teacher. So I am collaborating with another teacher from another department. And you won't imagine I am collaborating with another teacher from tourism studies department. So we are planning a project on diaspora studies. So diaspora is very, very important for tourism department. So diaspora is a component which brings together, English department as tourism department. Secondly, I have got another project with the Center for Disability Studies. There's a Center for Disability Studies. So we are planning to organize a webinar on disability life narratives next month, July. So there are possibilities. As I clearly remember, the previous speaker mentioned UGC is promoting interdisciplinary research in all the universities. So interdisciplinarity has become the buzzword, as he rightly pointed out. So coming back to the purpose, addition, revision, and not reproduction of existing knowledge. So passion is the key word. You should be very, very interested. You should be very enthusiastic about doing research. You may not like to do that, but if you are not liking something, if you are not interested in something, you cannot do justice to your research. As a teacher, you have to do research. You have to complete your thesis. So why can't you develop passion? Why can't you develop interest in doing your research, so that your research output will become better? You can do justice to your research. And secondly, spark is very important. So every good research begins with a spark, a wonderful idea. So from that idea, you can develop your, synopsis and your project. So I'll be coming to that shortly. Let me repeat, interdisciplinarity is the buzzword. Right. So interdisciplinarity in literary research. I'm not going to elaborate this component much, because I'm sure that the previous speakers have definitely highlighted this aspect. So from discipline to interdiscipline. So discipline, when you talk about the history of disciplines, the evolution of disciplines starting from the classical period, Aristotle, etc. So discipline means fencing the knowledge. Yeah. You construct fences. You divide knowledge into different compartments. You compartmentalize knowledge. So will that work? So that was the old paradigm. You compartmentalize one discipline from another. So there are two paradigms: the old paradigm of Aristotle and the new paradigm, modern paradigm. So the old paradigm was, rigid, not flexible. It had only one perspective. If you focus only on one discipline, so there is obviously, limitation. As the professor mentioned, in order to study COVID, you have to focus on the different aspects of COVID: social aspect, economic aspects, political aspects, medical aspects. Okay, so you cannot compartmentalize. So compartmentalizing a particular knowledge won't help. So that's the new approach, and I also welcome that. So the new modern paradigm, knowledge is as a democratic, as a dynamic. Knowledge is ever evolving, So it should be a democratic system and a cooperative alternative. But co-opt, you have to cooperate with others, literature and history. Okay. So interdisciplinarity, that word means communication between. You connect a bridge with other departments. So English department and tourism department, or disability department, or history department. So intercommunication between and joining together. You put your heads together. That's the proper expression. You put your heads together to evolve something new. So you can produce bondage. Two persons from two disciplines coming together on a common purpose, right? So now we talk about another concept, that is transdisciplinary. You have to transcend. You have to go over disciplinary boundaries. Transdisciplinary, erasure of disciplinary boundaries. Okay. So with the advent of theories, we can see research has become, literary research has become interdisciplinary. So we borrow ideas from, different theories from different contexts. Theories of sociology, theories of history, theories of psychology, linguistics, etc., etc. So with the advent of different theories, literary research has become interdisciplinary. And another important development is the advent of cultural studies. So cultural studies has opened up all the boundaries. So that's why I could do a UNESCO project on a cult, a special cult in Kochi. That's Kapiri cult. It's Kapiri is a god, a local god. People worship Kapiri. And Kapiris are actually the forefathers of the Kapiris. They were taken from Africa by the Portuguese. So it had a colonial connection. So cultural studies could promote, interdisciplinary research. Right? Coming to different steps of doing literary research. First important thing that which we have to remember is our area of interest, right? If you are interested, for example, in a graphic novel, right? You have to read about the different studies on graphic novel. So, first of all, you look at an area, whether Indian writing in English or Indian fiction in English. Then you have to check the review of literature, which is essentially a sociological approach of doing research, review of literature. You look at the existing studies on graphic novel on graphic novel or Indian English fiction, existing studies in the form of books, critical studies on as books, research articles in different journals, reviews, YouTube links, other electronic sources, seminar proceedings, etc., etc. So once you quickly go through the existing corpus of studies on a particular area, what you will get, you will find out some research gaps, very, very important. You can find out some research gaps, some areas which are still left to work on. So once you find out a research gap, you can start your research from that gap onwards. So you find out an opening, a new area which has not been worked within a graphic novel or Indian English fiction. Okay, so that's the purpose of looking at a review of literature. You should look at the review of literature before fixing the topic. Okay, so once you find out the research gap, then you can think of evolving a research problem. For example, space in graphic novel. I mean, the space in the panels, graphic panels. Suppose there may be people who have worked on space in graphic novel. So I'm just giving an example. So you can evolve a research problem from identifying the research gap. Okay, so once you get a research problem, then you can come down to the topic. You can identify a topic. You can narrow it down further, and you can come to the topic. So there are different steps before finalizing a topic. Normally, researchers, they meet a guide, and the guide may have got some vague ideas, and some guides they impose. I use the word impose certain difficult areas on research scholars, and they may have faced so many tough situations in the course of the research. That should not be the real way. You should have your own topic. So identifying a topic from the research problem is very, very important. So once you find out a topic, once you identify a topic, then you can formulate a hypothesis. Hypothesis is actually what you are doing, right? In one sentence. I remember while I was doing my research, I happened to visit my former University of Hyderabad, and I went to my university to interact with my professors to get their feedbacks about my research. And I remember my professor asking the question, what is the hypothesis of your research? So hypothesis is very, very important. What you are working on in one sentence, what is your project on? So you should be able to give the answer in one sentence. That is hypothesis. If hypothesis is what, then how you are going to explain your hypothesis, that is methodology. So you have to explain hypothesis with the help of a method, with the help of a particular theory or not. So there are three different things you have to remember. As far as methodology is concerned, I'm sure that time is moving very fast. Regarding methodology, the first important thing you have to remember, you can simply do a research project without referring any theory. Without any theory, you can do a thematic study, a thematic research. So that was the old-fashioned research. I'm not blaming that. I'm not saying that the old-fashioned research is not useful. So without using any theory, you can do a thematic study. The second approach could be theoretical study. You can apply a particular theory in reading your text. And I recommend the use of theory. I recommend the use of theory, but not the abuse of theory. So that's a point which you have to remember. Very often we use theory in the wrong context, right? So if you have a particular theory, whether a post-colonial theory, so think about, I'm just giving an example. Think about post-colonial theory and think of reading The Tempest, placing the text against that theory, post-colonial. So theory makes the foundation of your project. You can place the text upon a particular theory and read. So if you have a very strong foundation, the building, if the building has a strong foundation, then it can withstand, tremors or anything, right? Thematic study, theoretical study, and the third approach, which has become very important these days, that is ethnographic study. That means you visit certain sites and you collect data and you incorporate interviews and all those things. If you are working on tribal studies, for example. So these three approaches have become very important, especially the third is very important nowadays. Okay. So once you are clear about hypothesis, methodology, and all the 5 or 6 components, then you can directly think of writing your synopsis. So let me quickly summarize the components of synopsis in 1 minute. Right? You obviously have to start your synopsis with a title. Every good title, I say, should have 2 components. The first part is a very small portion, which is thematic in nature. Between 2 worlds, I'm just giving an example, between 2 worlds. Okay, then put a colon. Then the explanation of the theme, a diasporic reading of A.K. Ramanujan's English poems. The second part of the title has to be an explanation of the theme. Here you clearly cite the author. If you are studying more than one author, a study of select Indian English novel, a study of Indian English fiction of select Indian English novelists. So you have to use the word select, or a study of A.K. Ramanujan and Kamala Das poems. You have to be very specific. So 2 parts of title. Okay. Then you have to introduce the first paragraph should be an introduction of the area, followed by the main argument. You have to introduce the main argument. Then you have to introduce the hypothesis, what you are working on. Right? Then you have to clearly specify the objectives of study, 1, 2, 3, 4 objectives. The scope and relevance of study, I'm just summing up very fast. Scope and relevance of study. You have to clearly specify the methodology. In 1 small paragraph, you have to clearly specify methodology. Then the chapter divisions, tentative chapter divisions. My thesis is roughly divided into 5 chapters, etc. So you have to sit with your supervisor before finalizing the synopsis. Then followed by the work division, first year collection of data, second year, the third year. So everyone expects to complete the thesis within 3 years. So it may take 8 years or 10 years. Okay. That's a different matter. So come after that, bibliography is very important. Work cited is very, very important. Not work cited, bibliography. So here you have to divide bibliography into 2 sections: primary sources, secondary sources. Under secondary sources, you have to include the recent works pertaining to the area. That's very important. You have to include journal entries, which is very, very important. You have to include YouTube links and other interviews, seminar proceedings, etc., etc. You have to be up to date while preparing bibliography. So this is the structure of synopsis, very briefly. So bibliography. So once you complete your synopsis, you are familiar with the area. Then you can prepare a working bibliography. So you prepare, before starting research, you have to prepare a rough bibliography, complete bibliography of your topic. Then you have to start collecting your materials, right? And very importantly, this is very important. So if your project is divided into 5 chapters, take one chapter. Before writing the first chapter, prepare a separate bibliography of the first chapter. So you can prepare a separate bibliography of the first chapter by making use of the bibliography you have already collected. You have a complete bibliography with you. From complete bibliography, you can prepare a separate bibliography for first chapter. This because I'll tell you why. It is just like eating bread. How to eat a bread? I usually tell my students, when you get a bread, you cut the bread into different pieces. So pieces. You cannot write all chapters at the same time. You take one chapter at a time. So start with the first chapter. Collect a bibliography of the first chapter. Not only that. Then sit with your supervisor and divide the first chapter into 5 or 10 sections. For example, if you plan the first chapter of 50 pages, 50 pages, okay, then typing 50 pages, completing 50 pages is a very difficult task. We know that. So it's a psychological barrier. It's a big obstacle, right? So to make it lighter, it is prudent to divide the 50-page chapter into 5 different sections. Take one section at a time. 5 into 10, 50 pages. So one section has got approximately 10 pages. So if you prepare a 50-page first chapter, you can edit it and make it a 40, 45-page chapter, right? So one component, one unit, 10 pages. So then your burden is, lesser, right? So think only about one section and prepare a small bibliography of that first section and start working on the first section. So plan. So within 15 days, I will complete 10 pages. Fine. You may take 20 pages. Sorry, you may take 20 days. No problem. So by after 20 days, you will complete the first unit. Then take the next section. Second unit. So complete 5 units, then collect all the units together, then it will make 50 pages. Right. So be practical. When we do research, we have to be very, very practical. So I'm talking all these things from my experience. So it's only a matter of trial and error. I learned all these things after completing my PhD. That's a funny thing, right? So I do this with my research colleagues, and they are benefiting. So this is the same process. After completing the first chapter, take the second chapter, do the same process, divide the second chapter into different units. Again, take one thing at a time, one unit at a time, then complete all those things. Just like connecting one unit with another, then connecting different chapters together and making it pieces, right? Subsections of this chapter is very important. Reading of materials. So usually we waste a lot of time in reading unnecessary stuff. If we are writing the first chapter, don't bother about the third chapter or fourth chapter. Focus our time and energy only on first chapter while doing the first chapter. If you're doing the second unit of the first chapter, devote your time and energy. Go deeper into that component. You can do justice to that. So bothering about the fifth chapter or conclusion at the beginning won't help. So reading of materials. Reading is very, very important. But you have to be, we all use smartphones, smart cards, but we have to be a smart reader. You should know how to manage time. We have got lots of things to do in our colleges, in our personal life. Right? So we have to be very careful. We have to be very professional in doing research. So once you, after completing all the 5 chapters, you prepare a rough draft, complete a rough draft, you proofread the draft. If you have got some close friends, you can give it to them and they will help you. Then plagiarism checking, submission of thesis, etc. Then viva. So you'll be awarded the PhD, right? So regarding the different sources of research, I am sure that you are familiar with some of these, but this is very, very important. Library Genesis, from which this site you can download books free of cost. You'll get very useful books on theory on different areas, right? Short Ganga, Flipnet, National Libraries. And visiting libraries is also very, very important. Nothing can, compensate for libraries. Okay. During this time, these digital platforms will help us a lot. Okay. Subject experts, teachers who are really good in your area. So consultation with the teachers will always help. Okay. It will be more useful than reading 10 books, right? So from my experience, I can tell you, right? So that's about a source of research. Then different theories. So who is not afraid? We all are afraid of different theories. There are different theories coming up. Trauma theory, diasporic criticism, spatial criticism, cyber theory, animal studies, fact studies, presentism. Different theories of transnationalism, disability theory. So there are different techno-criticism. So different theories are emerging after post-structuralism. There are different contemporary theories, techno-criticism, etc. So, with proper planning, I think we can try to understand these theories. Okay, coming to the second section. Let's see some of the practical sides, some recent trends. Right? I'm sure that many speakers, they have focused on this cultural studies, but let me give you a quick idea about cultural studies. So this C is very important, C is small letter. So when we use C in the capital sense, because when we use C in the capital sense, that means dominant culture. So we have to be democratic. So cultural studies promotes, it's an approach. It's not essentially a theory. So cultural studies is an approach which promotes other cultures. Right? So culture, Raymond Williams' definition of culture, you all know that a set of values and beliefs, norms in society. But who makes culture is very, very important. The powerful group in society. And how does it take place? So culture is produced. That's very, very important. Culture is not naturally given, but it is produced by human beings. That's very important. It's produced and constructed through narratives. That's very, very important. Culture is narrated, constructed, produced through narratives, written narratives. If you read the writings in your regional language, literature, oral narratives, tribal narratives, folk narratives. So culture is transmitted through even visual narratives, graphic narratives, etc. So there are different modes of cultural transmission. So there is politics in every text. That's very, very important. That's what Stuart Hall talks about in his essay, Encoding, Decoding. So every text has a politics. Every text is encoded in a particular ideology, whether it is a gender ideology, racial ideology, class ideology, caste ideology. In the case of Dalit narratives, caste ideology. So you have to decode the existing ideology. If you look at the history of culture studies, the early Birmingham Center for Contemporary Culture Studies started with Raymond Williams, Adorno, etc., through to the recent new cultural studies, Deleuze, Guattari, Zizek, Ramsey, etc., etc. So you can see a change in the new cultural studies. There's a book by Gary Hall, New Cultural Studies. Okay. So cultural studies, I would say, I use, this is my word, I often use the word diffuse. So by applying cultural studies, you are diffusing a text. That means every text has, certain power here the Foucauldian notion of power is very important. Power and knowledge. You are deconstructing. You are, text is a word which comes from textile. You weave certain threads horizontally and vertically. So the horizontal and vertical weaving of threads make a text. So every text is encoded with a certain ideology. There's power and ideology in every discourse. Text produces discourses. So while applying cultural studies, you are desedimenting the text. You are deconstructing the text. You are rereading the text. You are diffusing the power of the text. So you are subverting the text. You are diffusing the power politics of a text. So that's why I use the word diffusing. So politics of meaning making. You are trying to find out some other meanings in a text. Okay, an interdisciplinary approach. Culture studies has promoted interdisciplinary studies. Popular culture studies promotes popular culture. That's why we can do a PhD on comics. We can do a PhD on film studies. Okay, canon, traditional high culture, low culture division, canon is broken. So that's it. Culture studies and resistance. This is very, very important. So resistance is a very important component in cultural studies. Very often, cultural studies approach is used as a resistance against, globalization. That's very important. Some important theories: Antonio Gramsci, Althusser, Roland Barthes. Here, I am reminded of Roland Barthes' beautiful analysis of choice. It's a beautiful essay by Barthes, The Choice. Anyway, Foucault, and this last word is very important. M.S.S. Pandian. So Pandian, who was a professor of JNU, he's no more. Okay, he has done extensive studies on Tamil Nadu, and recently his book came out posthumously. The strangeness of Tamil Nadu, the strangeness of Tamil Nadu, in which I remember two beautiful essays. One, an essay, a cultural studies, a cultural reading of Veerappan, the forest brigand Veerappan, and he wrote another interesting essay on Rajinikanth, the film star. Right? So different new trends of in the field of literary research. So memory, literature as a storehouse of memory. This is the basic assumption. Literature transmits memory. Literature archives memory. It's a storehouse of memory. So memory studies has become very, very important since 2000. Right? It is a slowly emerging field in the Indian context. In the West, it's already an established field of study. With the Holocaust writings, memory studies flourished. So memory, the basic assumption is that memory is narrative, discursive. Memory is a narrative construct, it's a discursive construct. Memory can be written, memory can be narrated in two ways, written form and material form. I'll just give an example for material form. The best example is the statue making. Just imagine, you can understand. I'll give an example from your location. I read that a statue of Chhatrapati Shivaji is under construction in Mumbai, right? So what exactly does a statue tells to the spectator or spectators? Okay, the present generation. So statue as a text transmits certain memory. So you are reminded of the exploits of Chhatrapati Shivaji. So statue is a narrative, a discursive text which tells something. So the material dimension as well as the written dimension. In the case of written dimension, I can give so many examples. The best example is autobiographies. Think about Dalit autobiographies. Think about tribal autobiographies. In some novels also, you come across this memory politics. Identity, memory is all about identity formation, individual as well as collective. That's very, very important. Individual memory and collective memory. So think about Maya Angelou's autobiographies, serial autobiographies. It is not only about the story of Maya Angelou, but it is also about the story of African Americans in America. So it's a collective story. It's a collective memory also. Politics of representations. There's a politics in representing all these things. Another important point is counter memory, right? There are certain narratives which challenges the mainstream memories. I repeat, certain narratives which challenge mainstream memories. I'll just give an example. Naxal life narratives, Naxalite narratives. There are so many narratives, life narratives by former Naxalites. So they openly challenge the state. And the memory which is narrated through these narratives, you can see, they are counter memories, not the memories in tune with the dominant culture. So counter memory is also very, very important. So all these things are closely connected with the memory studies. Is an area which is closely linked with the history, ethnography, sociology. So we are connecting memory studies with literature. Literature and ethnography, thick description. Clifford Geertz concept, thick description. Literature as cultural text, Asman, another important theorist of memory studies, cultural text. Life narratives is a very interesting possibility, I would say. Life narratives of different forms, diaries, autobiographies, biographies, oral narratives. Northeast, I'm reminded of literature from Northeast, for example. There are lots of students who work on Northeast literature. So life narratives and memory studies, tremendous possibility to work on for prospective researchers. Theories, somewhat important theories of memory studies: Maurice Holbach, Pierre Nora, Jan Asman. Here, an Indian theorist is missing. That's why I'm telling you, in the Indian context, this area is not properly explored. Memory and space is very important. Memory is very important. For example, the location of a statue is very important. So there is a stupa. There is a stupa of Rohit Vemula in University of Hyderabad campus. Right? That location is very, very important. It has got a symbolic significance. Right? So memory and space. Trauma and memory. So memory is connected to trauma. If you look at trauma writings, trauma literatures, memoirs, very important. Memory and memoirs, MEMOIRS. Memoir is a form which narrates memory a lot. So trauma in connection with the emergency, for example, trauma in connection with emergency, trauma in connection with an ecological disaster. For example, Bhopal tragedy. There are so many narratives, oral narratives in connection with the Bhopal incident. So the trauma suffered by the living victims, the endosulfan victims in Kasaragod, northern Kerala. Okay. So trauma studies and memory studies. Again, look at the connection. Right? Let me quickly move on to the next component: literature and space. Spatial criticism, spatial theory is very, very important in contemporary research. Space, when you talk about space, again, constructiveness. Space is constructed, it is not naturally given. Constructiveness of space, configuration of space, you configure the space. Space is an empty container in which human activities unfold. That's very important. Space is produced. Lefebvre, the production of space, it's a key text. It came out in 1974. And space is, remember, space is connected with our identity formation, identity and subjectivity formation. And positionality of subjects is very important. So space and gender studies, look at the connection. Gender, class, race, etc. And space and cultural geography. So cultural geography, there are so many studies on cultural geography. And literary geography of a text. You can look at the space depicted in a novel, the urban space in Aravinda Adiga's novels, for example. Right? The literary geography of a text, the space within the panels of a graphic novel. That's also very important. Okay, so the different dimensions of space. Space is connected with power and knowledge. Foucault, right? Graffiti is a very interesting example. One of my students, when we did a study on graffiti, a student of mine did his degree project on campus graffiti. So graffiti, writing on the wall, which is displayed publicly. So graffiti is a narrative. So it has got so much, dimension, right? Graphic novel, space, city novels, travel writings, very, very important. Diasporic writings, space is very important. Representation in textual space is also important. Narrative space or the textual space is very, how different characters are placed in the narrative space by the writer. That's also very, very important. And the politics of this narrative space. Material culture is very important in connection with space. I already mentioned statues and monuments, right? Museums, right? Theorists, Edward Soja, Michel Descartes, Michel Foucault, right? This book is very important, The Routledge Companion of Literature and Space, which came out in 2009. Right? Another important component is literature and human rights. So every day we hear about human rights violations across the world, torture, atrocities, human rights violations, and represented in many literary forms. That's a concern. Okay, how different forms of literature, including digital forms such as blogs, BLOGs. For example, blogs of rape victims. Autobiographies, just like Malala's autobiography, right? So different novels, diaries, okay, and Frank's diary, for example. How different forms of literature depict torture, atrocities, and human rights violations. That's a concern. It's a very interesting, very important area. Based, dehumanized subjectivity. So we look at the formation of the subjects in this text, literary text. What kind of subjects? Dehumanized subjects or debased subjects. And the main concern is the act of dissent and protest. We look at the element of protest and dissent in this text. And remember, act of dissent, it also involves writing as well as reading. Writing is also an action of showing dissent. Write an autobiography. Your performance is also dissent. I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. There's a performance, an act of dissent, right? So writing as well as reading. So all these things, when acting, performing on the stage, all these things are acts of dissent and protest. Witnessing, so witnessing and trauma, and a very important area as far as literature and human rights is concerned is South Asian studies. I strongly recommend you to focus on South Asia. There are different locations where you can explore. The best example is a Sri Lankan context. There are so many powerful writings in the form of novels, poems, and other narratives coming out from post-LTT period in Sri Lanka, focusing on human rights violations. And there is a separate area which is called atrocity fiction, genocide fiction, atrocity fiction. Right. Of course, we had a partition, then emergency, etc., etc. Okay. So witnessing and trauma is very important. Trauma studies and human rights, very important. So look at the connection. So another important aspect is necropolitics. Necro means death and politics, politics of death. And culture of fear. So Achille Mbembe. So Achille Mbembe, the African, contemporary African theorist, is very, very important in this context. How death, how human beings are tortured to death in writings. and diaspora and human rights. If you migrate to another nation and you suffer human rights violations, the best example I can point out is a Malayalam novel which was later translated into English, Goat Days. The Goat Days by Benjamin. So the protagonist suffers in Saudi Arabia. So that's a story. Human rights violations in Saudi Arabia. So there's no time to explain much. Spaces of violence. So violence studies is also important. South Asian writings, very important. I have already pointed out. Another interesting area to explore is waste studies. How society understands waste and how it is represented in literature. The best example, you all know, The Wasteland by T.S. Sigmund Bauman, Wasted Lives, Modernity and its Discontents. So all these approaches came out since 2000. So look at the word modernity. Waste and has a connection with modernity. Right? So waste, not only landscape, but also human form. So how human beings, they have become waste. The best example is, refugee narratives. So refugees in literature. So how refugees are portrayed. So they have no home. They are homeless. So they are actually waste. A part of they are a waste. They are neither here nor there. And cultural decay. That's very important. And I hope you remember the small poem by William Carlos Williams, The Red Wheelbarrow. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, that small poem. Besides the white chickens. So red wheelbarrow is a waste. It has become out of use. So red wheelbarrow is replaced by modern machines. So red wheelbarrow symbolizes agrarian civilization, and wheelbarrow is no more relevant in the era of industrial revolution. So red wheelbarrow is a symbol. It's a symbolic waste, right? Dirt is very important. So waste and dirt, essentially disorder. So waste means essentially disorder. Matter which is out of place. So there are so many works, interesting works which have come out, Literature of the Waste, Susan Sidney Morrison, right? So let me quickly give you some other promising areas. Graphic literature, I have pointed out. In popular fiction, it's also called Indian commercial fiction, Amesh Tripathi others. New media studies, very, very important, digital writings, children's literature, especially animations, web comics. Comic studies, very, very important. Life narratives, different forms, autobiographies, diaries, memoirs, etc., etc. Different forms, oral narratives, trauma studies, visual studies, photographs, films, for example. Space and literature and machine technology, especially science fiction writings, violence studies. Northeast literature, another interesting area to explore. Performance studies, resistance and literature, film studies, migration studies, human rights, culture studies, translation studies, still very, very important. Diasporic studies, memory studies, subaltern studies. Let me quickly wind up. Subaltern studies, disability studies, travel narratives, fiction studies, refugee narratives, humor and literature, food and literature. So these are some of the important areas which I can quickly point out. I can show you a book. This is the book is titled Literature and Sickness. So literature and sickness, very interesting. So there are to conclude, there are no boundaries. We can connect literature with any discipline. It's very interesting for us to explore different dimensions. And it is worth exploring because the ultimate aim of a good research is generation of new knowledge. So we had to produce something new, a new perspective. That's all about research. We talk about originality in research. That's all about originality. So I'm not very sure that I have done justice. So at this moment, let me thank the authorities, the principal of Ismail Yusuf College, the faculty members of language and social science departments for giving me an opportunity. So this is the time for discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge regarding research. I hope our students, participants, and researchers will benefit from your lecture. You rightly told about the theory and its various aspects, and students, particularly undergraduate students and PG students, had the opportunity to listen your views and opinions regarding theory. So thank you once again. Just I want to share one question, that will you please explain the relevance of theory in third world countries like India?
One important point which actually I wanted to tell you, but because of shortage of time. Okay, this is the point. If you look at many theories, most of the theories are Eurocentric. In the case of post-colonial theories, most of these theories of post-colonial studies, they were Western educated, whether it is Gayatri Spivak or Dept Chakravarti or Homi Bhabha, right? So theory is very, very important. Let me answer your question. I would say our final destination should be to develop our own indigenous theory. I'll give you an example. I was working on a tribal autobiography from Kerala. I was doing my project on that. It's all about power politics. Then I thought whether I should include Foucault's notion of power and knowledge. Then I thought it is not proper, borrowing some ideas from the West and introducing it into our context has got obvious limitations. That's a point which we should not forget. Coming to that point, that is the final destination. I should say that our final destination is to develop our own indigenous theories from within our culture. That is what M.S.S. Pandian, theories such as M.S.S. Pandian did. Unfortunately, he passed away at a very early age. So if you look at the subaltern studies collective by Guha and others, and that collective has got the same problem, essentially Marxist approach, a uniformal approach, but they don't address something more than class. They focus only on class. Okay, they cannot address other subaltern groups other than those who exist outside the class. So every theory has got limitation. So from Eurocentric, the professor, I remember the professor talking about decolonizing the mind. So we have to decolonize we have to ultimately decolonize our mind out of this, preoccupation with Western theory. Not at the beginning, but gradually. So we have to develop a theory from within our culture. So that is what we did when we did a study on statues of Renaissance figures in Kerala. So we were developing our own methodology, our own theory, while analyzing the statues of three key Renaissance figures in Kerala. But it will take time. It's a gradual process. So I have been into research for almost 20 years. So now my next target is to develop a theory from within. So that's why like-minded people you can also think of that. So my main target in the coming years is to develop an Indian memory studies collective. There is already a collective in the Western context, Western Memory Studies Collective. So I have contacted many faculty members across different universities in India. So we are planning to make a collective, academic collective of Indian memory studies. That is what we want. There is no problem in borrowing ideas from Pierre Nora or Michael Hallberg, but we have to develop our own theory from within. So that's the point. So
Okay,
we have to okay.
thank you, sir. I hope indigenous theory will come and that will make our India capital of research. Thank you for joining us and enlightening us for your valuable guidance. Now I request Dr. Putani to introduce our new guest speaker.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
like to introduce Dr. Suresh Main, sir. Dr. Suresh Namdev Main, Professor and Director AAC, Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy, University of Mumbai. Academic qualification, MA, B.Ed, SET, PhD, and NCC officers. He is working at university in the different bodies and councils, member of Board of Study, Subject Board, Senate member, member of Standing Committee, University of Mumbai, Director, Academy for Administrative Career. He has teaching experience of UG level 15 years and PG levels it's 11 years. 5 students are doing PhD. He has published a paper in journals, 15 articles and chapters published in books. He has presented at conference, seminar, workshop, and symposia, international level 21 and national level 14. He has a chairmanship, the 16 invited international conference and seminars. As a resource person, also chaired 9 national conference and seminars. As a resource person at different institutions, I also delivered lecture on API, 4 colleges and universities, participated in the various training courses, teaching, learning, and evaluation, technology, and programs. Literature and socio-economics development. मी सुरेश मैन सरांना या सत्राची त्यांच्याकडे सुपूर्द करतो. त्यांनी आपल्या सत्रात सुरुवात करावी अशी विनंती करतो. वेलकम सर. डॉक्टर
Thank you very much, Professor Eknath Phutane. I'm also thankful to organizer of this. I'm audible? Please say someone
Yes,
yes
sir.
or no.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, sir. You have muted yourself. Hello. Hello, sir.
I'm audible again?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It was error from the mobile. Okay, so I'm very much thankful to the all organizer team, faculties of Ismail Yusuf College, and I am also congratulating to the
Hello, sir. Hello.
it is proud for me also. I was also sometime part of this college. So I'm just expressing my gratitude to the college because initially I started my career from this Ismail Yusuf College. And now I'm as my friend, actually he's my friend also, Professor Eknath Phutane. I'm just thankful to the all faculty, and now I'm career as I said at the University of Mumbai as a professor in the Mumbai School of Economics. So once again, thank you to one and all. Today's my topic of presentation, which is given as I said by the this coordinator also, ki it's a very different kind of topic. I can say that because I feel that really this is the good kind of interdisciplinary topic, because literature, which is really directly or indirectly connected with all subject and all fraternity, which is very much important. So this is my responsibility of 2 days to cover the literature and socio-economic development and its reflection, or we can say relation in the past or recently, whatever is there. I will try to justify. I will try to do my duty to just express the relation or reflection of the literature and socio-economic development. If you see from the historical background of the world, I would say from the world and historical background, it is initially when the started period wise or century years, which talks about the very close relation between literature and economic development, or I can say socio-economic development, which is my topic also. Because whenever changes had become or whenever changes has come in the society, or whatever kind of changes happen in the social, political, economic era, which is reflected always in the literature. So this is the very, I think, relevant topic which will be just expressed, or which will be proved that there is the very close relationship between literature and socio-economic development. Historically, if you look about the overview of these relations between the literature, I would just go back regarding the very oldest period. It was, Athens and that the thinkers, which was very popular, Plato. He also talks about that period and their reflection of the society in his overall literature. Whereas he talked about the little bit touched about the socio-economic development. First of all, I think I need to talk about what is the socio-economic development, and I will try to relate these things with the thinkers and the writers. If you know the literature, and I think experts very rightly talked about the literature and their relation with the many branches. Socio-economic development, which is very broad concept, it means which is covering about the some social issues as well as to the economic issues. Social issues, or we can say social problems also. Sometime it was in a economic language, it is said social problems also. Social problem means it's related to education, which is related to the gender, which is related to the health issues, which also related to the standard of living, and so on. It means when we are talking about the social development, it is covering all kind of social aspect which are expected to measure in the standard of living and this kind of measurement. It means if you look about the overview of history, there is the where society when started to progress, when started to development, at the initial phase, it was in the very, we can say, poor situation regarding the social issues or social problems, which talked by the literature and which reflected in the literature or thinkers and philosophers writing. As I just talked that Plato's the view or approach regarding the gender issue, which talked in his book, which was very popular book, the Republic, the Republic. In the book of Republic, he said regarding the social issue, that time he talks, if women are expected to do same kind of work as a man, we must teach them the same kind of things. It means gender equity, which was talked in the Plato's approach very initially, because in the Athens period, it was talked in his own literature, as I said in the book of Republic. It means the reflection of society, which affected in the literature of Plato. Later on, if you look about the Greek culture, where Aristotle also highlight about the politics, he also developed his ideas regarding the society and societal development. He talks regarding the politics, more or less. He talk about the Greek culture, and he said in his book, which is very, I think, important quote in his book. He said, "Excellence is never an accident. It means it can be created with the hard work, or with we can create with the our own efforts." It highlights regarding the politics, and it contributed regarding the development of society. So I think in the very past period, it was initiated regarding the social development by this kind of philosopher and in their literature. Later on, if you look, because I'm just skipping in between period, but Karl Marx, as some experts touched to issue, always talked about the struggle of poor and poverty issue, which is the part of economics. In his popular book, like Das Kapital, Communist Manifesto, he always talk regarding the social issues, or more than that, we can say economic issues. What are the economic issues? Which are the issues concerned to poverty, which is the very crucial, we can say, or a big problem of economic development, or we can say obstacle also in the economic development. So very in initial phase, Karl Marx talks about the poverty. Similarly, some literature from the Indian literature, from the state-wise, or suppose Maharashtra's literature also talked about the poverty, as well as about the unemployment. Also, they said regarding the crisis. Suppose you will find out the literature from Maharashtra's poet, and that they talked regarding the crisis of agriculture, crisis of rural area, which is also part of economic development. So I feel that there is a very close connectivity had between the literature and socio-economic development. Karl Marx were talked always regarding the poverty, about the struggle of poor people, or struggle of the laborer. In his Das Kapital, he talked regarding the history of all previous societies has been the history of class struggle. History of class struggle. It means he reflect that the literature, his literature or his overall writing, which is reflected to the society and phase of the that century. So I think this is the always writers, philosophers, and these poets also always trying to justify, trying to talk regarding the economic policies as well as the policy development also, and which is recognized later on by the policymakers. They try to incorporate in their betterment for the society, for the social development and betterment. So we cannot say that only policymakers are making good policies, but whatever they are making, they are choosing, they are just based on the literature, and whatever suggested by the socialists, whatever suggested by the philosophers and literature. I feel that. So it's a many examples we will get about this relation between the literature and economic development. If you see regarding the some examples at the global level as well as the national level and state levels also, by the literature, by the poets, as I said, by the writers, they wrote regarding the socio-economic problems, and where as later on as a result we can say which started proper policies for the socio-economic development. Socio-economic development, as I said, is not only depend on the some certain thing, which is depend on the societies or changes in the economic area. It is also noted, or which is reflect regarding the changes in the political matter, which is also part of the many things which are impact on the socio-economic development and their proper directions. If we look about the Indian history of the literature and socio-economic development, I think there is also again it's a very good kind of contribution which contributed by the Indian philosophers or writers. I would say more than that, they devotedly talks about the socio-economic development in very initial phase, which was very good ideas for proper policy making and proper directions of the Indian prospect. Initially by the Rabindranath Tagore in the their experiment of Sri Niketan or in the Shanti Niketan, he talks about the self-sufficiency and their needs which should be the fulfilled within their Sri Niketan village, and that it means that Sri Niketan experiment, which was the outcome of literature of the Rabindranath Tagore, which talks about the all issues of the social and economic development. Similarly, his poetry is like a Gitanjali, which was around a collection of the 103 poems. From that, around 53 poems which are devoted to the social and cultural issues. It means again it's a strong relationship which is just talks by this Gitanjali and his own literature. Similarly, later on, at the phase of that we can say independent and that movement, Mahatma Gandhiji were very much focused regarding the socio-economic issues and their development. In his book like Harijan, similarly in the Swadesh and his ideas of the development, Mahatma Gandhiji as a philosopher, as a writer, always focused regarding the culture of independent. Similarly, socio-economic development. Throughout our overall his literature, if you look about the India of my dream in 1947, he wrote regarding the Indian development and their proper directions. Is very popular, as you know, concept which contribute to the economic area also. That is called the Swaraj and self-sufficiency, which we can say which provided a very good kind of ideas for the policymakers, and later on which is adopted also in the planning commission. So self-sufficiency of village, all kind of activities, their development, social development and economic development were focused throughout the literature of Mahatma Gandhiji. So in an Indian context, if you look the relation of Indian literature and socio-economic development, I think this is the very good contributor as a philosopher, as a writer. They contributed in the journey of this socio-economic development. Regarding the Ramraj concept, Gram Swaraj, and self-sufficiency, Mahatma Gandhiji pointed out regarding the all kind of development, means human development, resource development, small scale industries, and ultimately the bartering system which suggested for the village and their sufficiency. He also talks regarding the political system which should be more kind of more kind of means society based, which will be the helpful for progress of all kind of people, means no one will be deprived from the social development or economic development. So this is the very we can say ground level approach which talks in the overall literature of Mahatma Gandhiji. And this is also as a thinker, economic thinker also, we are suggesting, we are adopting in the policy making. Recently, in the smart village concept, which is adopted many principles from the Gram Swaraj concept, which talks by the Mahatma Gandhiji. So ultimately, the writers, philosophers, and literature, which is the reflection of the policy making, or we can say it's a reflection of the public policies. And outcome, if you look about the outcome of this literature and writing, which is affected, which is adopted in the policy making during the planning period also. If you see from the first planning year period, means 1951 to last 14th 5-year plan, many things which are adopted from the writers, from the poet, also from the various writers and backgrounds. Okay, so I think this is the story which required to recognize in the economic development, and Indian literature or its relation with the socio-economic development. Later on, if you look about the Maharashtra's thinkers and contributors to the socio-economic development, many socialists or philosophers contributed to economic development. From the Maharashtra, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, which is the very popular writer, or we can say socialist, or we are recognizing his literature for the economic development, because he talks regarding the situation of farmers. He focused always their exploitation, like a book from the Gulamgiri, which was published in the 1873 by Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, and he talks regarding the exploitation of farmers. So this literature trying to just justify to the farmers. So this is the Mahatma Jyotiba Phule's Gulamgiri. Similarly, Shetkaryansa Asur, this book wrote in the 1881. Again, he talks regarding, he trying to just means always talks regarding the problems of farmer, and they are focused about the issue as a economic issue. It should be resolved with the proper policies, and that both books, which is contributed to the economic and social development, I feel strongly. Similarly, if you look about the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's contribution in the or his literature, which is contributing to the socio-economic development, he always supported to the society, means changes in the society, social reformer, as a social reformer also. He talks, he given many ideas for the country, and it is affected in the policy making. From the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and his book, his many speeches, which are also teach in the Marathi literature of Maharashtra. Many speeches are very much ideas which are providing for the socio-economic development. So his own publication, like own, problems of rupees. This book is not only concerned, or which not given ideas for only the Indian society. It is given idea for the international trade. So I think this is the big contribution from the literature, which contributed for the socio-economic development of the country. More than that, many socialists from the Maharashtra, they contributed, and they means written the books for the socio-economic development of country, and they just try to resolve, or we can say provide some kind of inputs for the policymakers to resolve this kind of problems. Later on, if you look about the Sant Sahitya, which is also talks about the social issues, which is also talks about the economic issues. Just as an example, if you look the literature of Sant Tukaram, in the many Abhang, he talks about the the social and economic issues. For example, he talks in one Abhang. I would like to just share that Abhang. अवघाची संसार सुखाचा करीन आनंदे भरीन तिन्ही लोक, which is talks in ki all kind of fulfillment. It means that calibrities it should be create in his own kind of I think work. So this is the overall all kind of sant or their literature which is talks regarding the social issues of that time. Similarly, which is talks regarding the economic issues also, and more than that, which is also guiding regarding the our own proper behavior and their philosophical base, which is I think very important for the surviving. Similarly, means I'm not going to touch about the I'm not going to detail about the all Sant Sahityam, like ki Ramdas, Tukaram, Eknath, all kind of Sant from the Maharashtra. They talks in their literature regarding the gist of the I think story of life and all kind of issues were covered in their literature, like social and economical and all kind of aspects. Similarly, many literature which kind of means like rural literature, Dalit literature, and many Kadambaris of the Maharashtra, which talks about the crisis, economic crisis, farmers' crisis. Many poems which are devoted to the their surviving, like Narayan Surve, where talks regarding the Bhakrisa Chandra Shodhanyat Jindagi Barbad Zali. It means he always talk like a Karl Marx, where always talk about the laborers' issues and their high employment, which is the part of economic development. So I think this literature always talks, always helps for the economic development, and they raise the voice against the policymakers through their poem, through their literature, which is very much important for the policy making or proper direction of the economic development. Similarly, Bahinabai Chaudhary, from her poem, she always talk about the rural issues, talks about the gender issues, I can say, in her poem, her poet. So this is the all kind of poets are covered many issues as social issues, as political issues, similarly as economic issues. Very popular poet like Vittal Wag, he also provided that his Tiffin poem, which is also very popular, which is talking about the farmer situation and their some problem, we can say. Similarly, Haribao Apte and some Annabao Sati's literature, which is also very much useful, and they try to create voice of the deprived people through his literature. So ultimately, as I said, that connection of the literature and economic development, as I said, this is the very, I think, very useful statement will be like literature is the reflection of economic, social, political changes. Means whenever this kind of changes are rising in the society, in the politics, in the economic area, which is reflected in the literature. So this is the all kind of I think poet, authors, and literature, which is the creation helping for the socio-economic development, and which is the very much important for the social problem, which is guiding for the proper directions of the policies. And this is just I think more than that, literature from the economic side, like welfareness, public policies, and welfare economy, which is also part of proper direction of this or proper reflection of the changes in the society. Now in a day, whatever kind of changes are happening in the social development, like ki now gender ratio, which is now going to rise, like at the India level now, which is talking about the 933. It means still there is this gap between the men and female ratio, male and female ratio, but which is also, we can say, contributed by the Savitribai Phule, and all them, they started education movement and other things, which are the reflection of social development. Some kind of contribution, some kind of I think recognition we should recognize of this kind of all writers. Similarly, ki now whatever changes are going on in the area of health issues, means now we extended our life expectancy from like a 60, it's an average like 60 years to 65 years. This is now a life expectancy of India, which is rises due to this kind of all movements through the literature and their writing. Similarly, if you look about the in education level as a social issue, now we raises our education or literacy ratio at the country level, due to this kind of, I feel that means movements, whatever created by the this philosophers or socialists. Similarly, now we have better situation relatively in the economic development, like a GDP's growth rate, which is now in the last 5 year around we achieve around the 6%, and plan wise, it means in this past year we reflected some crisis in this GDP growth rate, but in the last 5 years, or means 3 year or 3 decade, we achieve around the two digit growth rate. So which is also reflection of all this kind of writers, literature, proper policy making, and that similarly, infrastructural development and their growth also means directly or indirectly reflected by the writers, and which we can say that now position of socio-economic position of the country, which is rising due to this kind of voice or contribution of all these philosophers or literature. So I think whatever I was planned to share during my presentation. Finally, I would like to just say that literature, which is always reflection of the socio-economic changes, and which is just creating the directions, proper directions, which is helping for the proper policy makers, which is providing inputs for the policy makers, and also helping for the betterment of country. Not only in the socio-economic development, it is contributing in the political or other areas also. So I think this is the relation which is I try to just take a review, because this is not a proper paper. It was a challenge to me how to deal this issue, because economics is a different kind of subject, and which is differently. I try to connect with the literature. I don't know exactly how I can justify to the subject, but it's a truth that okay, always whatever changes are happening in the society, that is the reflection which is reflected in the literature. So I think this is enough. I once again thank you to the organizer for invite me, and I think this session can open for the discussion.
धन्यवाद सर। इस लेक्चर के बारे में कोई क्वेश्चन है तो प्रोफेसर या कोई पार्टिसिपेट पूछ सकते हैं। Any question? या ठिकाणी मी डॉक्टर सुरेश मैन सर यांचे आभार मानतो। मैन सरांनी संत साहित्यापासून आधुनिक विचारवंत दादाबाई नौरोजी असतील, महात्मा ज्योतिराव फुले, रवींद्रनाथ टागोर, अगदी नारायण सुर्वे सारखे कवी, आणि हा जो आवाका आहे तो फारच व्यापक होता, तरी अगदी कमी वेळामध्ये अत्यंत चांगल्या पद्धतीने सरांनी आणि अर्थशास्त्र याचा संबंध शोधणं। कार्ल मार्क्स म्हणतो की शेवटी माणूस हा अर्थाधिष्ठित प्राणी आहे आणि तत्कालीन परिस्थिती, राज्य व्यवस्था, समाज व्यवस्था त्याचा परिणाम सगळ्या घटकावर होत असतो। म्हणून एक महाभारतामध्ये एक श्लोक आहे, राजा कालस्य कारणम। सगळ्या परिस्थितीला सगळी जी परिस्थिती आहे तिला राजा कारणीभूत असतो, राज्य व्यवस्था, समाज व्यवस्था, त्या काळची प्रशासन व्यवस्था ही कारणीभूत असते। अत्यंत चांगल्या पद्धतीने डॉक्टर मैन सरांनी या ठिकाणी साहित्य यांचा संबंध जो आहे तो संबंध व्यक्त करण्याचा प्रयत्न केलेला आहे। ते विषय अत्यंत व्यापक असताना देखील तो अगदी कमी वेळामध्ये त्याचं स्पष्टीकरण केलेलं आहे। समाजशास्त्र असो म्हणून मराठी साहित्य किंवा कोणतेही साहित्य असेल त्या साहित्यामध्ये समाजशास्त्रीय समीक्षा, मार्क्सवादी समीक्षा, त्यानंतर मानसशास्त्रीय समीक्षा, अगदी साहित्य आणि इतर समाजशास्त्रे साहित्य और इतर ज्या शाखा आहेत, ज्या इतर शाखा आहेत त्यांचा संबंध कसा आहे, आणि एका पटडीमध्ये ठेवून एका समाजशास्त्रीय समीक्षा असेल त्याच्यामध्ये काय, उदाहरणार्थ सामाजिक कादंबरी असतील किंवा अर्थविषय आलेला असेल किंवा चरित्रात्मक असेल, पण चरित्र जरी असेल तरी चरित्रात्मक कादंबरीमध्ये देखील जो संघर्ष आहे, आर्थिक संघर्ष आहे, तो संघर्ष त्या ठिकाणी अंतर्भूत झालेला असतो। याशिवाय आज जी साहित्य संमेलनं महाराष्ट्रामध्ये भरतायत किंवा देशभर भरतायत, दुष्काळावरची भरतायत, दुष्काळावरचं साहित्य निर्माण होत आहे, आणि दुष्काळ शेवटी माणूस किंवा शेतकरी जो काही आत्महत्या करतोय त्याचं कारण अर्थ आहे, आणि या अर्थामुळे आत्महत्या शेतकऱ्याच्या होत आहेत। सरांनी अत्यंत चांगल्या पद्धतीने अगदी व्यवस्थित त्या ठिकाणी संत साहित्यापासून ते आधुनिक साहित्यापर्यंत आपलं स्पष्टीकरण, आपला टॉपिक अत्यंत चांगल्या पद्धतीने निभावला, त्याबद्दल सरांचे महाविद्यालयाच्या वतीने मी आभार मानतो। याच्यानंतर एकच सत्र आहे, अगदी आपण या आंतरराष्ट्रीय वेबिनार मध्ये उत्तरार्धामध्ये आहोत। डॉक्टर स्वाती वाहवळ मॅडम आमच्या महाविद्यालयाच्या प्राचार्या, आणि नारखेडे सर, त्याचबरोबर जोशी मॅडम, आणि सगळी आमची जी कमिटी आहे त्यांचं मोलाचं सहकार्य यामध्ये आहे। त्यांच्या सगळ्यांच्या सहयोगाने, त्यांच्या सहकार्याने हे आंतरराष्ट्रीय वेबिनार पार पडत आहे। मी गेल्या 6 वर्षापासून महाविद्यालयामध्ये आहे। आमचं पहिलंच, मी असल्यापासून हे पहिलंच आंतरराष्ट्रीय, अगदी व्यापक अशा पद्धतीने 3 दिवसाचं हे वेबिनार या ठिकाणी उत्तरार्धामध्ये आहे. तर मी परत एकदा डॉक्टर सुरेश मैन सरांचे आभार मानतो. धन्यवाद. यानंतर एक शेवटचं सेशन आहे. ते सेशन 2:30 2:30 को स्टार्ट होगा. सब प्रोफेसर और पार्टिसिपेंट इसमें इन्वॉल्व हो जाइए. ये लास्ट सेशन है और ये जो सेशन है वो सबने मिलकर सब बाद में वो लिंक आपको भेजी जाएगी. जो फीडबैक लिंक है उसमें फीडबैक देना है. तो मैं फिर से एक बार बताता हूं कि अभी जो है 1:05 हुए हैं. तो 2:30 को स्टार्ट होगा सेशन. 2:15 को सब ज्वाइन हुए. धन्यवाद.